February 2022 Level 2 exam results were announced today, and the overall pass rate was 44%, pretty close to the 10-year average that we've seen for that exam. So you might think it's safe to say that the CFA exams are getting back to the pre-pandemic normals, except you would be very wrong, at least if we assume what 300hours.com is estimating the current minimum passing score of that Level 2 exam to be, then this exam was very unlike all Level 2 exams of the past. I'd like to take a quick minute to say congratulations to the 44% of Level 2 candidates who did pass this exam. You have now cleared what is, in my opinion, the single most difficult hurdle that you'll have to get over to become a CFA charter holder. The Level 3 exam is still really tough, but not quite as tough as Level 2, and I think most current charter holders or Level 3 candidates who have been through the Level 3 exam at least once would agree with that. The point is, you just have to do it all one more time. You're well on your way to becoming a CFA charter holder, which is a massive accomplishment, so congratulations. To those who didn't pass, I think it's important to take some time and consider the study strategy that you used. Was it optimal? Did you put in as much work as possible? Could you have improved in certain areas, learned more material, or learned the material better, and answered more questions correctly had you approached your studies differently? If the answer is yes, then figure out when you want to sign up for the next Level 2 exam to take again. If the answer is no, AJ, I studied 600 or 800 hours, I couldn't have done any more, I couldn't have been any more focused, and I just haven't been able to clear the Level 2 exam, say you've taken it 3 times and you're in the 30th percentile, nowhere near passing. In that position, then, you may want to consider not taking the Level 2 exam then, because remember, it's much more intellectually challenging than the Level 1 exam. And I'm just being honest here, if you're someone who is narrowly able to clear the Level 1 exam, even though you put in a ton of effort, more than the average, like 300 hours study time, and you're continuing to put in a lot more effort than average for the Level 2 exam, but just are continually unsuccessful, there are other things in life that are more valuable than the CFA program, at least more efficient when it comes to how you allocate your time early on in your career in this finance industry. So consider that before you jump into it once more. Now let's talk about this minimum passing score. And I've referenced 300hours.com on this channel many times. They're not a sponsor of the channel. I'm not promoting them, but I think they probably do the best job out there at estimating what the minimum passing scores of each exam are. I know they gather hundreds, if not thousands of data points to put out those estimates. And this time around, for the February 2022 Level 2 exam, they're saying the minimum passing score was 72%. Not only would 72% be an all-time high, at least as long as they've been estimating the minimum passing scores for those exams, it's also 1% higher than the estimated minimum passing score than the February 2022 Level 1 CFA exam. The Level 2 exam required you to answer more points correctly than the Level 1 exam. So does that mean the Level 2 exam is asking easier questions? And that is precisely why I say that this February sitting of the CFA exams was unlike any sitting we've ever seen in the past. If the Level 2 exam actually requires people to answer more questions correctly than the Level 1 exam, and I tend to believe the estimates from 300hours.com, then we're at an interesting point in the journey of the CFA program. Historically, the Level 1 exam typically has the highest minimum passing score and the lowest pass rate because it's generally considered easier questions, but there's a ton of different topics, so it's like an introductory type of level. Then the Level 2 exam asks far more challenging, far more difficult questions, slightly more narrow in scope, but the minimum passing score has been as low as like 55%, 58%, I believe on that one, at least the estimates for it. So they're very hard questions, and you just have to get like 60% of them to say that you cleared the level. But again, that is not what we're seeing in February of this year. We're seeing the Level 2 exam potentially having a higher minimum passing score, and the pass rate isn't all that much lower than the Level 1 exam. So that means you could make a legitimate argument that the questions that were asked on that Level 2 exam were easier in aggregate than the questions that were asked on the Level 1 exam. Then there's the counter argument, though, that when they set the standards for each of those tests, the standard is much higher for the Level 2 hurdle to clear. So just because the passing score might be 1% higher, that doesn't necessarily mean that a 1% less qualified pool of candidates could get through it, because of course you have to pass Level 1 to get to Level 2, and because they're considering it a higher hurdle. So they're more difficult questions, and you have to get more of them right. I can't say for sure where the reality lies. My guess would be that it lies somewhere in between those two scenarios, but the fact remains that 300hours.com is saying the minimum passing score was higher for the Level 2 exam than the Level 1, and that's just unlike what we've ever seen with the CFA program. So I don't know exactly what to make of this quite yet. Now, I did see some comments on Reddit where folks were saying that they weren't trusting the estimate from 300hours.com that the minimum passing score for this level 2 sitting was 72%. But their reason for not trusting those estimates is completely anecdotal. They said things like, well, I only scored 50th to 70th percentile on 3 sections and I still got a pass. So I think the minimum passing score is probably less than what they're saying if I was able to clear it with my scores. And of course, I understand the logic where they're coming from, but you just can't make an assessment as to the average minimum passing score across all the exams for all the level 2 candidates out there by looking at your own test and your own results. You could have gotten an overallocation to different types of questions, different categories, whatever. That's why when you see results, they're banned for where you could have scored. They're blue bands, right? It doesn't show you exactly where you score. The Institute gives you a range as to where they think you could have performed on that exam day in each section. So no one person's exam is going to be totally indicative of what the minimum passing score estimate should be. Or we could say that a potential third scenario is that the level 2 exam questions are not easier than the level 1 exam questions. In fact, they're just as difficult as they've always been. And the Institute jacked up the minimum passing score to like 72%. So the 44% of candidates who passed this level 2 sitting are in fact the smartest and most prepared level 2 candidates we've ever seen in the history of the program. I wouldn't necessarily buy into that logic just because I don't see any other factors out there that would potentially cause these level 2 candidates to have been the smartest level 2 candidates we've ever seen. So that being said, you almost have to agree that the questions being asked on the level 2 exam must be easier than they ever have been in the past, assuming the Institute is using the same standard of difficulty to mark as the pass rate. Lots of assumptions go into these things though, so let me know in the comments down below what you all think might be going on here with a higher pass rate, not quite as high as we've seen over the last 10 years, but a much higher minimum passing score. If you took this February exam, definitely do not get specific, don't commit any ethics violations, but in your opinion, was the exam easier than you expected? Did the questions in aggregate seem easier than what you felt like you might have seen on some of your practice problems per se? And if we get enough people going, yeah, I think the question did seem relatively easy compared to what I expect, we might be able to surmise that that is why the minimum passing score was set so much higher for this level 2 sitting. The Institute also decided that the questions that were put on that exam were a bit too easy, and they needed to raise the hurdle that people had to clear to consider it a passing result. Let me know in the comments down below. As always, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. The YouTube algorithm loves you for the long watch time here. If you're not already, please subscribe to the channel, like this video. I appreciate all that stuff. Thanks for watching.